Evan did not plan to land on this planet. His ship was meant to pass it, scan it, log it, leave, but space never cared about plans. A sudden energy storm hit his small explorer craft. Alarms screamed. Lights died. The ship fell like a broken stone through the sky. Evan held his seat and waited for death. Instead, the ship crashed. When Evan woke up, everything was silent. Too silent. He slowly opened his eyes. His head hurt. The air felt heavy but breathable. He pushed himself out of the broken seat and looked around. The ship was half buried in dark red soil. Outside the cracked window, the land stretched wide and empty. No trees, no animals, no wind, just a flat world under a gray sky. Evan stepped outside carefully. His boots sank slightly into the ground. The planet felt wrong. Not dead, but waiting. He activated his scanner. Life signs detected. One signal. Very close. Before Evan could react, the ground shook. A shadow moved across him. Slow. Massive. Evan looked up and froze. A giant figure stood behind him. She was easily 10 times his size. Tall, wide, and clearly intelligent. Her skin was pale blue, marked with faint, glowing lines. Her eyes were large, calm, and focused directly on him. She was not holding a weapon. She was holding his ship. 2 fingers gently lifted the broken craft like a toy. Evan raised his hands without thinking. His heart slammed against his chest. The giant female alien studied him for a long moment. Then she spoke. Her voice was deep, slow, and strangely gentle. "Small one," she said, "you should not be here." Evan swallowed. I didn't choose to come." She nodded, as if she already knew that. "I am Lyra," she said, "and you arrived at the worst possible time." That sentence sent a cold wave through Evan's body. Before he could ask what she meant, Lyra turned and began walking. The ground shook with each step. She carried Evan's ship carefully, like something fragile. Evan had no choice but to follow. After several minutes, they reached a massive structure rising from the ground. It looked like a shelter built for giants. Thick metal walls, heavy doors, warning symbols carved into the surface. Lyra opened the door. Inside was a wide chamber filled with glowing panels, machines, and strange devices. She placed Evan's ship on a platform. "Your craft is damaged," she said. "You cannot leave yet." Evan felt panic rise in his chest. "How long will repairs take?" Lyra did not answer right away. Instead, she looked away from him. "That depends," she said slowly, "on whether you survive." The doors behind Evan closed with a deep metallic sound. Locked. Evan turned back quickly. "Wait, why are the doors locked?" Lyra's hands tightened into fists. She took a step back from him, increasing the distance between them. "For your safety," she said. That answer did not make Evan feel safe at all. Lights along the walls began to change color. Soft blue turned into warning red. A low hum filled the shelter. Lyra's breathing became heavier. "There is something you must understand," she said. "My species has a cycle." "A cycle?" Evan asked. Lyra nodded. "A biological phase. Rare. Dangerous." She closed her eyes for a moment, as if fighting something inside herself. "We call it heat." Evan did not like the way that word sounded. "During this time," Lyra continued, "our instincts grow stronger than reason. Our strength increases. Control weakens." Evan slowly stepped backward. "And anyone nearby?" he asked. Lyra opened her eyes and looked straight at him. "Is it risk?" Alarms grew louder. A timer appeared on one of the walls. It was already counting down. Evan followed her gaze. "How much time is left?" he asked. Lyra's voice dropped to a whisper. "Very little." She turned away from him again, pressing her hands against the wall as if trying to stay grounded. "I did not want this," she said. "Isolation is the rule. No outsiders are ever allowed near us during this phase." Evan's mind raced. "Then why bring me here?" Lyra answered honestly. "Because outside the shelter, you would already be dead." The lights dimmed. The hum deepened. Lyra took another step back, breathing hard. Evan finally understood. He was trapped with a giant during the most dangerous time of her life. And whatever this cycle was, it had already begun. Evan stood still. Every sound inside the shelter felt louder now. The hum of machines, The slow echo of Lyra's breathing. The warning alarms that pulsed like a heartbeat. He looked around for an exit. There was none. The walls were thick. The door was sealed. Even the ceiling looked reinforced. This place was not built to keep danger out. It was built to keep something inside. Lyra stayed near the far wall, her back turned to him. Her massive hands pressed against the metal, as if she was trying to hold herself in place. "I will not come closer," she said. Her voice trembled. "As long as I can control myself." Evan took a careful breath. Panic would not help. He had survived space storms, system failures, and deep vacuum. Fear was an enemy he knew. "Lyra," he said calmly, "I need to understand what is happening." She nodded slowly. "The cycle affects our body and mind," she explained. "Heat increases strength, desire, and aggression. Logic fades. Instinct rises." Evan did not like the word instinct. "How long does it last?" he asked. Lyra hesitated. "Several hours. Sometimes longer." Several hours trapped in a locked room with a giant losing control. Evan swallowed. "And the others?" he asked. "You said outsiders are never allowed." Lyra's shoulders stiffened. "Because outsiders do not survive," she said quietly. That answer hit harder than any alarm. Evan moved toward one of the glowing panels. Symbols and numbers scrolled across the surface. He did not understand the language, but patterns were familiar. Energy levels, biological warnings, emergency protocols. "This shelter," Evan said, thinking out loud. "It was made for this cycle." "Yes," Lyra replied, "to protect others. And ourselves." Evan pointed at the timer. "Then why is it failing?" Lyra turned her head slightly, not fully facing him. "Because you are here. The shelter was not designed for humans." Evan felt a cold realization settle in his chest. His presence changed the system. Added variables. Unknown risk. Outside the shelter, the planet began to rumble. Evan looked at Lyra. "What is happening outside?" "The heat affects the planet too," she said. "Our species is connected to its energy. During the cycle, the surface becomes unstable. So even if the door opened," Evan said, "you would not survive," Lyra finished. A sharp wave of pain crossed her face. She bent slightly, gripping the wall harder. Evan stepped forward without thinking. "Stop!" Lyra shouted. He froze. "Do not come closer," she said. "Not now." Evan raised his hand slowly. "I'm not afraid of you." "That is what makes you dangerous," she replied. The lights flickered. One of the machines sparked and shut down. Lyra noticed it immediately. "No," she whispered. "The stabilizers are failing." Evan moved to the console. "Let me help. You do not understand our systems." "I understand systems," Evan said. "Different tech. Same logic." Lyra looked at him for a long moment. Her eyes burned brighter than before. "Humans run from danger," she said. "That is what our records say." Evan shook his head. "Sometimes. But sometimes we stay." Another alarm sounded. Louder. Faster. Lyra's breathing grew heavier. She clenched her teeth, fighting the change inside her. "If I lose control," she said, "you must hide. Do not try to save me." Evan did not answer right away. Instead, he adjusted a control. The alarm softened slightly. Lyra noticed. "You did that," she said. Evan met her gaze. "I'm still here." For the first time, something changed in Lyra's expression. Not hunger, not aggression. Surprise. The timer reached a new warning zone. Red. The cycle was getting stronger. Lyra slowly stepped back again, creating distance. "Evan," she said, using his name for the first time. "If you survive this, my people will need to know what you are." Evan did not smile. "Let's survive first," he said. The shelter shook. Outside, the planet roared. And inside, two very different beings faced the same truth. There was no escape, only endurance. The shelter shook again. Dust fell from the ceiling. Lights flickered, then steadied. The red warning glow filled the wide chamber like a silent fire. Evan held onto the control panel as the floor moved beneath his feet. Lyra stepped back, breathing hard. Her glowing lines pulsed faster now, bright and uneven. She looked larger somehow, stronger, and more dangerous. "I can feel it," she said. "The heat is rising." Evan nodded. even though fear pressed heavy inside him. He forced his hands to stay steady. Then we work faster, he said. Lyra laughed once. A short, broken sound. You think effort can stop biology? Evan looked up at her. No, but I think it can guide it. That made her pause. Evan studied the panels again. He did not know the language, but he knew patterns. One system fed into another. Energy flow, biological support, emergency limits. The stabilizers, he said. They're trying to suppress everything at once. Yes, Lyra replied. That is how it has always been done. That's the problem, Evan said. Pressure builds until something breaks. Lyra frowned. Then what would you do? Evan took a breath. I would redirect, not block. Let the energy move in controlled paths. Lyra was silent. Another alarm sounded. One of the wall panels went dark. Lyra staggered slightly, her hand slamming into the floor to keep balance. The impact shook the room. Evan ran forward without thinking. Evan, stop, she shouted. But he was already there, adjusting a damaged console. Sparks flew, burning his glove. He did not pull back. Lyra stared at him in shock. Why do you risk yourself? She demanded. Evan did not look up. Because giving up is worse. He rerouted the flow. The alarms dropped in pitch. Not silent, but weaker. Lyra felt it immediately. The pressure, she said slowly, is changing. Evan nodded. It's not gone, just balanced. Lyra knelt down carefully, bringing her massive form lower so she could see him better. You face something that can crush you, she said, and still you stand. Evan finally looked at her. Humans learned long ago that fear doesn't disappear. You carry it. Lyra closed her eyes, focusing. Her breathing slowed a little. For us, she said, instinct is law. For us, Evan replied, instinct is a challenge. Another wave hit, stronger than before. Lyra groaned, gripping the floor. Her glowing lines flared bright white. The shelter screamed with alarms. Evan was thrown against a wall. Pain shot through his side. He forced himself up. No, he muttered. Not like this. He scanned the room and saw a secondary system. Old. Manual. Probably meant for emergencies when automation failed. Human hands were good at manual work. Alien systems forgot that. Evan ran to it. Lyra noticed. That system is unstable. So, am I? Evan said. He pulled the lever. The shelter roared as power surged through alternate channels. Lights flared, then settled into a steady blue-red mix. The alarm slowed. Lyra gasped. The heat, it's still there, she said, but is no longer drowning me. Evan leaned against the console, breathing hard. That's all I can promise. Lyra stared at him. For thousands of cycles, she said, we isolated ourselves. We feared what we become. She looked at her own hands. You did not fear me, she said. You fear the problem. Evan smiled weakly. Monsters are easy. Problems can be solved. For the first time since the cycle began, Lyra smiled too. But the shelter trembled again. A deeper sound this time. Structural warnings flashed. The planet's energy peak is still coming, Lyra said. This was only the first surge. Evan straightened. Then we prepare. Lyra nodded slowly. Human, she said, you have shown strength I did not expect. She looked toward the ceiling, where cracks were starting to form. But the hardest part is still ahead. The timer reset. Final phase approaching. And this time, there would be no margin for error. The shelter groaned like a living thing. Metal walls bent inward slightly. Cracks spread across the ceiling, glowing with unstable energy. The ground shook in deep, uneven waves. This was not just a system failure. This was collapse. Evan wiped blood from his lip and forced himself to stand. His body hurt, but his mind stayed sharp. This is the final phase, Lyra said. Her voice was tight, controlled by pure effort. The heat has reached its peak. Her glowing lines burned bright silver now. Power rolled off her in visible waves. The air felt heavy, charged. Evan looked at the main console. Warning symbols flashed everywhere. The shelter won't hold, he said. Lyra nodded. It was never meant to last through an interrupted cycle. Another violent tremor hit. A section of the ceiling broke open. Energy poured in like lightning. The shelter screamed with alarms. Lyra cried out, dropping to one knee. Evan ran to her side without thinking. "Evan, no," she shouted. But he was already there, shouting over the noise. "You're losing balance." Her hand slammed into the floor beside him, stopping inches away. The force alone cracked the ground. Lyra froze. Her entire body shook. "I am fighting myself," she said through clenched teeth. "If I lose, you will not survive." Evan met her eyes. "Then don't lose." Simple words. Heavy meaning. Evan turned back to the console. One system remained active, the core stabilizer, but it required manual alignment. Inside an open energy chamber, even Lyra hesitated. "That level will kill you." "Maybe," Evan said, "but if I do nothing, it definitely will." Before she could stop him, Evan ran. Energy burned the air. His suit alarm screamed. Pain flooded his body as he entered the chamber. Lyra roared his name. Evan forced his hands onto the control rings. His gloves melted. Skin burned. He screamed, but he did not let go. "Focus," he whispered to himself. "Just focus." He remembered training, breathing, control, human control. He turned the final ring. The system locked. Energy surged through the shelter, then settled into a controlled flow. The alarms went silent. Evan collapsed. Lyra rushed forward, catching him before he hit the ground. She lifted him carefully, as if he were made of glass. His breathing was weak. "Why?" she whispered, fear flooding her voice. "Why would you do this?" Evan barely opened his eyes. "Because you trusted me." Lyra held him close, fighting the final waves of the cycle. The shelter stabilized, but Lyra did not. Her instincts surged again, stronger, desperate. She stood slowly, holding Evan away from her body, arms shaking. "I must put you down," she said. "Now." Evan coughed weakly. "No time, listen." Lyra froze. "The system needs you," Evan said. "Your mind, not your strength." Lyra shook her head. "I'm losing control." Evan raised a shaking hand. "Then follow me." She stared at him. "Humans don't remove instinct," he said softly. "We ride it." Lyra closed her eyes. She breathed. Once. Twice. Again. She focused on Evan's calm voice, on his slow breathing. Gradually, the glowing lines dimmed. Not gone, but stable. The shelter stopped shaking. Lyra collapsed to her knees, exhausted, but in control. The cycle was breaking. But Evan did not move. Fear, unlike anything Lyra had known, hit her chest. "Evan," she whispered. No response. Medical alarms activated automatically. Human life signs weak, but present. Lyra exhaled in relief and terror. The final phase was over. But Evan's life now hung by a thread. And Lyra understood something new. This human had not survived by strength. He survived by will. Silence filled the shelter. Not the dangerous silence from before, but a calm one. The kind that comes after a storm has passed. Lyra knelt beside Evan, her large hands hovering over his small body, afraid to touch him too much. The medical system worked quickly, projecting soft light over his burns and wounds. His chest moved. Slow, but steady. "He lives," the system confirmed. Lyra released a breath she did not know she was holding. She sat back, exhausted in a way she had never felt before. The heat had ended. The cycle was complete. And for the first time in her long life, no one had died because of it. Hours passed. When Evan finally opened his eyes, the first thing he saw was light. Soft blue light. Calm light. He tried to move. Pain answered. "Do not," Lyra said gently. Evan turned his head. She was there, sitting on the floor, smaller now. Not in size, but in presence. Calm. Controlled. "Did it work?" Evan asked weakly. "Yes," she said. "Because of you." Evan smiled. "Good." Lyra studied him closely. "You risked your life for a stranger," she said. "For a species you did not know." Evan closed his eyes for a moment. "Humans do that sometimes." Lyra nodded slowly. "Then our records are wrong." Over the next days, the shelter returned to normal. Lyra repaired Evan's ship with careful hands. The planet outside stabilized as the energy cycle faded. During that time, Lyra sent a message. Not a warning, a report. To her people, she told them everything. About the human who arrived at the worst possible time. About fear faced with calm. About instinct guided by will. The reply came quickly. Disbelief. Questions. Then silence. Finally, approval. When Evan's ship was ready, Lyra walked him to the exit. The great doors opened, revealing the open planet under a clear sky. Evan looked up at her. What happens now? Lyra straightened. Everything changes, she said. My people will no longer isolate during the cycle. We will study control. Choice. She paused. And we will remember who showed us how. Evan stepped toward his ship, then stopped. You know, he said, humans will come back. Scientists. Explorers. Lyra smiled. They will be welcomed. Evan nodded, satisfied. As his ship lifted into the sky, Lyra watched until it vanished into the stars. For the first time, she did not feel fear of the next cycle. She felt ready. Far above the planet, Evan recorded his final log. Encounter successful, he said. Species not hostile. Highly intelligent. He paused. Note, humanity earned respect today. Not by force, but by control. The ship jumped to hyperspace. And across the stars, a new truth spread quietly. Humans were not the strongest, not the biggest, but when instinct threatened to destroy everything, humans andurat.